it's so nice to see you all again virtually. You're on Music and Chat with Shueh-li Ong, and it's a good morning from me to you in Singapore. Please say hi in the live chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. And please don't be backward and coming forward. I know there are a few of you who are shy. You don't particularly want to type anything in the live chat, or you may be using an iOS device or a mobile device. But it's always nice to make our guest feel welcomed, and I try my best to do that. But I do need a little help from my friends. So there you go. Thank you so much for those of you who tune in regularly and make me feel welcomed. I've got a new request. If you do enjoy my streams, to say a few kind words in the live chat, and if I may quote them in support of the continuing health and longevity of my channel / live stream. So thank you in advance very much. For those of you who are enjoying breakfast, have a hearty breakfast. If you're having dinner, have a nice, full and fulfilled dinner. And if you are not, if you're somewhere in between, thank you so much for spending those in-between minutes with us and with me. So as you know, I'm still in Singapore, and Singapore is going through still phase 2 of its post-lockdown. And my immediate family went out for lunch together with social distancing masks and all, and huge bottles of hand sanitizers. We went out for our lunch for the very first time after 2.5 months last weekend, right after the stream. Well, yesterday we had lunch again under the same safety measures. This time it was at the Jewel. It's the new entertainment and retail complex at the Singapore Changi Airport. So I thought I'd take a little quick video clip to show you what the Jewel looks like. So it seems it's the world's tallest indoor waterfall. Well, there you go. It was so peaceful just standing there, listening to the water droplets. I guess it's droplets in abundance. But it was nice to be with family and to be just standing there, taking in that ambiance. So there you go. Good morning to Ben. Hi, Ben. Good friend of mine in Singapore is also in electronic music. And he said that he's having breakfast and his wife Jane has baked chocolate bread. Oh no, chocolate, my favorite thing. I was telling some student friends of mine that I used to watch Sesame Street, and C was my favorite letter. Because C is for cookie and C is for chocolate. Oh dear. Another one of my student friends from Singapore, Jonathan. Good morning, Jonathan. Nice to see you. And speaking of friends, Jim Sosnin. Hi, Jim. Mount Eliza, yay. Jim is one of my oldest friends. When I say oldest, I don't mean necessarily in age, but someone I've known for the longest of time. And Jim is a great friend and a great electronic musician as well. There's so many good people out there who are in the area of electronic music and music technology with so much to offer, such as our guest for today. Let's see. Hold on. Theremin cam. I'll try again. There you go. C is for cookie. A request from Ben Ang. Oh, another old friend and dear friend, Bill William Stewart. I call him Bill Stewart with the T. Not Steward, but Stewart. A, I don't know what A is for apple. So nice to see you, Bill. And another dear friend, Mike Flavin. Mike Flavin, you are in oh dear me, I forgot where you are. I know you're. Oh yes, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. It's okay that you missed my show last week. We had a swell time. We always do. I bet you if we got together in a non-virtual party where we are in person, that we would have a great time as a group. And another dear friend, Michael Spicer, or Mix, as I call him. Those of you who are regulars know of my dear friend Mix already. Yes, a lot of Australians today. It's Aussie Day. It's the Aussie party today with our Singaporean friends. It's just wonderful, isn't it, that we can have people from everywhere together, and it warms my heart, or as they say, it warms the cockles of my heart, to know that we can all share friendship as the common thread, and that's what it's all about. Oh, Ben, of course, had to chime in. Ben and Mix know each other. Yeah, we're all impressive musicians here. We could make a good jam team. Anyway, I'm waffling on because I'm so excited. I'm so sorry. But yes, please say, if you haven't noticed yet, I've requested that you say a few kind words in the live chat that I may quote in support of the live stream. So when I do share it along, I'm legitimately revealing the fact that people do attend the stream and they actually like it, and I didn't make it up. I'm starting to tear. These few weeks have been real fun to see all my old friends, and I start to when I see their names pop up. Okay, so I've got 2 songs for you today. I'm sure you recognize the first one, but in celebration of summer or warmer sunny weather in Singapore, although it's the flip side in Australia, so we are in the winter season. I thought I'd play Summertime, and a piece from my second album, arrangement of the Chinese folk song Lover's Tears. If you do want to purchase my music, it's on Bandcamp. Let me see. Hold on, please. So it'd be shueh-li-ong.bandcamp.com. shueh-li-ong.bandcamp.com. That's where you would find it. So if you just go to Bandcamp and type in my name and spell it right, you will get some music. So there you are, summertime on the theremin. Not so in Australia where it's winter. And my arrangement of Lover's Tears on my second album, which is called Music from Another Land. It's available on my Bandcamp site. And if you have already said some kind words in the live chat that I may quote, most appreciated as always. Mike Flavin, my dear friend, I want you to know that you may be the only American who has said hi in the live chat amidst the Aussies and the Singaporeans, but you are our friend in our midst, so don't be shy to put any comments or interact with my other friends, okay? What else has transpired since I have been playing? Ha ha ha! Jonathan, you're funny. I hope you're playing this song or learning how to play this song on the guitar. I guess so. Okay. So, I've had the fortune of knowing several wonderful people with colorful lives and even more colorful stories to tell. Simply because they decided they wanted to do something. And a guest from a couple of streams ago, Stephen Fortner, he provided a shareable moment, which I'd like to share with you once more. And that was of Keyboard Magazine's Connor Frev Cochran, the author of the Creative Options Corner and Keyboard Magazine, who said, to do something, you have to actually do it. Tony Falla, our guest for today, a dear friend whom I've known for the longest of time, has done it and some, as they say in America. So I want to welcome Tony, who's in Castlemaine, Victoria, Australia right now, and they are 2 hours ahead of me in Singapore. So do your calculations, do your math. If you're curious as to what time how many hours difference it would be between where you are and where Tony is right now. So let's get Tony on Skype. Hi, Tony.
Hello, Shueh-li.
Okay, it's good to see you. I am going to just reposition you in the frame so that you are in a good spot for all of us to see.
That's great.
I love your lime green. Is it a jumper?
It's my special television jumper, yes.
So that it jumps out at you? It's a joke.
You could do a green screen on my chest, actually, couldn't you?
Yeah, I could. But I won't try it.
I can see that I'm on now, yes, so we're going.
So Tony's got his, is it an iPad?
An iPad going here. It's like a space station in here.
Yeah.
The devices going at the moment.
You can tell that my empty room is also void of all the interesting educational artifacts that Tony's room is not void of. He's got all his books and equipment and stuff.
When I moved to this house about 12, 13 years ago, I said that if I couldn't fit it into this 4 meter by 4 meter space, I wasn't going to have it.
Oh.
And so the rest of the house is nice and tidy and everything, and it's all in here. I've got an amateur radio station. I've got a music playing area, an electronics workshop, and an archive of tapes and other media. So, I'm pretty happy. I can always go from one to the other pretty quickly.
So you got an electronics technician's version of a man cave.
Exactly.
So Tony, let's get going. You are an electronics technician as I've just said, an educator, an amateur radio enthusiast, and a tinkerer. I love the last one the most. And you have so many stories to tell, so I've squeezed I call it a bountiful group of adventures into 4 chapters. Those chapters are ripping at the seams because there's so much, but that would give me a chance to tell your stories in compact little units. So I'd like to begin with the first one. What was the first adventure that started you off? The first adventure?
Well, I do recall that when I was about 7, well, firstly, I've got to say my parents were a great support. They both worked in electronics during the Second World War, and so a lot happens to you before you're even born. That was setting me up for that. But one particular day at school, we all climbed over the back fence, and can you imagine where our school was like on the edge of Puckapunyal, the military camp? It was the British equivalent.
So this was in Australia. This was in Australia, wasn't it?
No, in the UK, Salisbury Plain.
All right.
Yeah.
So I got the picture of you and the family. I think that's the one in Germany. Am I right? Or
Yes,
is that in the
right.
UK?
Well, I grew up in Germany from the ages of about 1 to 4.
All right. I got it. So please continue.
And then my parents were posted over there for various reasons. When we came back, I got an interest in electronics because of my dad bringing stuff home. My mum helped me with crystal sets and what have you. But as I said, I was at primary school backing on to Salisbury Plain. We could see tanks and planes and guns going off. But they parked a whole lot of tanks behind our school. So we all climbed over at break and climbed into them. And the soldiers gave us cake, put headphones on, and we listened to the battle going on, the mock battle. And the teachers come running out, get us back in school, but that was it. Radio was my primary interest from then on.
And I do have a picture of a spy radio from World War II. Would that have been something that your father used? Sorry, I'm trying to get the right image here.
Okay.
So
yes,
tell us more about it and what your dad did. I do understand that he might have worked with the special operations executives.
Yes, he did. He ended up during the Second World War as a person who was parachuted into France and Italy with equipment and various things to aid the resistance workers over there. So he did that towards the end of the Second World War and ended up in Italy at the close of the war, I think. I've actually got the documents that I sent you, requesting that he went back into this sort of work afterwards. And so in the pictures in Germany, where I said I was a little kid, he was doing some sort of work already, and a few years later, he was invited to join MI6 as a training officer.
Wow. So I've got up here a letter, one of 2 letters that you mentioned from Major Fernandez.
Yes.
It starts with, "This letter will probably come as a surprise to you," so on and so forth.
Well, it did. I remember my dad getting it. He was unemployed. We were going with him to the unemployment office, with a pram and me walking there in England. And, one day in the kitchen, he said, "Look, I've got a job." Great. And he was invited back. Major Fernandez, I found out later, was, the big boss at the time. And he also helped on a movie called Carve Her Name in Pride, which is the story of one SOE officer who was killed in the war.
Oh, wow.
And he made sure it was accurate. So, he's still doing things in the 50s.
Do you know 60. If he's still alive and kicking? Probably
no, I
not.
don't.
Yeah. So I
have found a lot out by watching by looking up all these photographs and things. It's been quite a journey.
I'm sure it's been a journey for me too. Being the observer of your adventures. Maybe I should write something about it. But I do have another letter from Major Fernandez as well, I believe. Yes, in receipt of your dad's reply. Am I right? Yes.
Yes, yeah. He said, come in to see me.
Yeah.
And got the job, and the rest is history.
I noticed you and your father share the same initials. Am I right?
You're right. Albert George in his case, and Anthony Falla, George Falla, should I say, Anthony. But I was Tony ever since I left home.
Nice. So for those of you who may know of Leon Theramin's little escapades, he worked with the KGB in World War One. So this is associated with the World War One stuff, naturally. And if you're interested, here's a picture of the thing, a listening device that Theramin designed and put together. It's a passive listening device, so no batteries or power needed. So it sat in the U.S. Embassy in Moscow for 7 years, undetected because of that.
Right. Yes, and actually that crosses over into my other interest, because I understand how that works with the resonance for a radio frequency. So as it vibrated, it could modulate a high frequency signal, and you could then receive it on an external receiver. Clever.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yeah, in my wildest dreams, I would never have thought, 50 or so years ago or 60 or so years ago, that would have been something that would have come out of someone's imagination and made real. But people are clever, aren't they?
They are. And musicians seem to have quite a lot in common with electronic people, because Hedy Lamarr, the actress, she worked on control systems for torpedoes and things like that, based on things that she'd discovered in the music world and stuff like that. We recently had a talk about that in our radio club.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll get to the radio club very soon, but before that, so how long was the family in... I know there's lots to talk about. How long was the family in Germany then? How old were you when you left Germany?
I think I was around about just a bit over 4, because my aunt said that there's a picture of me who I was an expert skier in Germany at the time, so at the age of 4. So I must have come back around 4 or 5.
Wow. And when you say come back, you went back to the UK then?
That's right. We came back by ship, and there's a story there, because my parents found me in the bar finishing off all the drinks when all the passengers had gone to bed, and they were searching the ship for me. The ship was actually circling another ship to prevent it going on the rocks, because there was a massive storm. And I just remember that there was a massive pile of vomit on the middle of the floor in our cabin, because of all the people sleeping around the wall. It was just a terrible night, and we saved the other ship. And that's our journey back. So one of my earliest memories.
Wow. You started drinking at 4. That's so funny, because I remember years ago when I was still living in Dallas, and in Dallas you can't drink on the streets, open bottles, or you can't take your cocktail or whatever it is outside the club or wherever it is you're drinking. You can't kind of stroll the pavement while you're on the phone, kind of thing. You can't do that. So I was due to play with my band, and I usually drink before I play. When I say drink, I mean a glass of water. So I took this glass of water and started strolling the pavement, but it looked like it could have been something else, vodka or something, I don't know. So the security guy came up to me and said, "You can't drink that here, miss." I think it's just water. So my bandmate, also another dear friend, John, he said, "Oh, she's Australian. They start drinking when they're 4."
Well, I think the British kind of have a similar attitude to it.
That's funny. So, what was your next adventure then? Because I've got something lined up here. After Germany, you decide that you wanted to head to other shores. Was it just you alone or with the family as well?
Oh, you're probably talking about the time I left the BBC
Oh no,
to
I
go.
got I got Singapore here.
Oh, wait a minute. I should look at my script. All my life's getting jumbled up.
Oh, don't worry. I've got it all properly lined up. I will
Oh,
remind
yes.
you.
Well, I'll probably need a bit more prompting, but yeah,
Don't
sometimes
worry.
I just. Anyway, yes, you've reminded me. You've reminded me. At the age of 15, no,
15.
at the age of 14, my parents were asked to go and work in Singapore. And
Oh,
my aunt offered to look after me in England while my brothers and sisters went out there with my parents.
oh,
And so I did that for about 4 or 5 months, and then I got a bit homesick. And so my aunt sent me to Singapore
oh.
to join my family. And so I caught the train from, where was it? Portsmouth, up to London, caught the plane out to Singapore, all at the age of 14 on my own. Which I look at the kids these days, you're going to hear this a lot, and you can't imagine them doing it now. But there I went, Qantas Airlines, and the plane was nearly empty. It was on its way to Australia, obviously a stop in Singapore, as well as nearly every other place between here and there. One of the first jet planes, a Comet 4. And I was sitting there, and I said to the stewardess, I said, can I have a whiskey and I can't remember what it was, a whiskey and something. And she said,
Ah,
she said, I'll go and ask the pilot. And she went up to the front and came back, and she said, have you had it before? I said, yeah.
when
She said,
I
all
was
right then.
4.
At 14, yes. So, they're
That's
pretty
funny.
laid back. I thought that probably got me in the mind of going to live in Australia because they're so laid back. Anyway, I got to Singapore. I lived there for a time. I would have even probably possibly passed your mother in the corridor because she worked at a place I used to visit,
Oh,
apparently. You told me the Singapore swimming pool.
yeah, Singapore Swimming Club.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I was there.
Oh, you were?
In, yeah. You don't remember this story, do you? I've told you this.
No. No,
Yeah.
tell me again.
Well, we belonged to a couple of swimming clubs, and one was that swimming club, and another one was the Hotel Singapura,
Yeah, which I
and
have
that was,
here. Hotel Singapore. Is that the family in front of Hotel Singapore?
oh, that other picture. Yes, we have got one in front. The one that's up at the moment, uh, as we've got a delay, is the one of us, my whole family, sitting in front of our house
Yeah, so that's the
in
house. And then
Margoliouth Road. Yes, the picture that where we're all standing is the one
standing.
outside the hotel.
Yeah.
But we used to go there every day after school. School finished 1 o'clock. There we are. That's it. I was about 14 there, believe it or not. A tall guy. um, yeah, and we went there for a swim every afternoon after school, and then I used to end up in the bar. And I remembered it's brandy and dry that was my favourite. Anyway, I used to chat to the ladies there who were waiting to go start work, if you get my drift, at the evening. And so they seemed to enjoy my company. They were always chatting to me, and a kid. And anyway, this made my parents decide to send me back to the UK. Government for us a boarding school for my final 2 years at school, and so I went there, and I came back twice for holidays, in the major holidays. I was back in Singapore. This time I brought my little brother with me.
Oh, all right. That's
Back
not Tim, is it?
Tim, yeah, Tim was at the boarding school with me. He was about 9,
All right.
10.
So I have a
Yeah,
picture of your pool membership pass,
yeah.
and it shows me the address, Jalan Jintan. So I did a quick search, and I pulled up the Singapore map thanks to Google.
I don't know how
Jalan,
you'd find it from but so much has changed. I know. I haven't been there since, but so much has changed.
yeah.
I can't believe it. We used to live just off Orchard Road
Oh, wow.
in an apartment in the end. And the other place, Margoliouth Road, has been modified out for all recognition. My sister went there to visit.
All right. So
Yeah, yeah.
on my map,
So, see,
I sorry.
sorry.
No, I was just gonna say on my map, I picked up two locations: Jalan Jintan, where the pool is. I don't know if it's still there, and the British High Com because I have a picture of an invite that your family got to the British High Commission.
Fatigue.
Who's
Yes.
that? The UK Commissioner General and the Countess of Selkirk? Selkirk? Is that right?
It was still all very colonial
Selkirk.
in those days.
So you were there for cocktails. Did you attend it as well, or just your parents?
Just my parents for that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a pity.
I got left at home always because I was now looking after my little brother.
Oh,
And my parents said, "Oh, well, you're old enough to look after him, you know." So I spent a lot of time changing his nappy. Well, that's later, that picture. He didn't have nappies then, but when he was a baby, yeah. And so I kind of learnt parenthood by default.
I guess we us older siblings have similar stories about, I wouldn't say babysitting, but kind of being like a surrogate parent, right? When our parents
Yeah,
are out of that. Yeah, I had that too. I have
yeah.
a younger brother, as you know. So yeah, you were right. My mom worked at Singapore Swimming Club. She was a assistant manager for a few
Oh,
years. It's
right.
changed a
Well,
lot now. Yeah.
yeah, I bet. I bet. Yeah.
Less greenery, a lot more build up area, you know. There's the, under the auspices of development and progress. I guess the world, that's the way the world sees it.
Yeah.
Progress is, oh
Well,
well.
I was there when they had villages, kampongs in the
Oh, wow.
west side, and Changi was a little village that I went to at night for
Wow.
meals. It's under the airport now.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, no, Changi's changed a lot.
Mm,
As you saw the little video clip I took of the jewel in the Changi airport. The Changi airport is Singapore's pride and joy. Actually, it's not the only airport base, but it's the one for commercial flights anyway. And they now have four terminals. Oops, four
mm.
terminals. And this entertainment and retail complex, which has this tallest indoor waterfall thing. Quite crazy. But
Yeah.
you should come back for a visit when I'm here.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I actually transited through Singapore once, going to the UK, and you know how those trains stop
Yeah.
and they open and they're all in tunnels, sort of thing. Well, they were working on that, so the door was open, and and I was looking out around through the doors and things, and before I realised it, about 20 people were converging on me. And they thought I was going to do a runner. and because I do look suspicious, I've got this sort of suspicious way of looking at things, checking things out, and it triggers the old security cameras.
Yeah, of course, yeah. You know, you should wear a badge next time. I'm harmless. You know
Yeah,
how they have these visitor badges? You can, with this adhesive bag, you stick one of those on. I'm harmless.
I'll give it a go, but I don't think it'll work. Tell you the truth, these guys didn't look too friendly.
So a little trivia about Singapore. Oh, I wanted to ask you, all right, the trivia is Singapore was occupied by the Japanese, and Tony knows this, before it was returned to the British at the end of World War II. And it became a crown colony, as they called it then, by the British. And I was just wondering whether there were special arrangements for British subjects to live and work in Singapore then when your dad and the family was there? Did you have
No,
any
no, I don't.
trouble? Did you have to get visas or anything like that?
Well, I had to get an identity card. That's
Oh,
right.
ooh,
But we're invited. It was a joint employment by the Singapore and the English government, the British government. So my dad was there to help Singapore. Yeah, so,
okay.
but yeah, there would have been visa requirements in those days.
All right. What's your most indelible memory of being in Singapore? Or maybe something that you identify with your stay with that.
Oh well, I can tell you something I was thinking about this morning was that I went to a British military school during the time I was actually there. So that was what would have been the fifth form, which is year 10. And the teachers were pretty hopeless. And one teacher, the chemistry teacher, lounged on a table and said, "I bet you don't know why I'm here, do you?" He said, and we said, "No." He goes, "Because I can't get a job in England." It's kind of like where the detritus wash up. And that really amused me, that did, because
No, dear. Were they a good teacher, though?
no, we just had to make do, I think that's probably why my parents sent me back as well, because if I hadn't have gone back, I think I wouldn't have had a very good education overall.
Wow. Okay. So, how many years were you living in Singapore then?
Well, at the age of 14, I was there for about 7 months, and for the next 2 years, I was at boarding school with just these 2 holidays out in Singapore.
Right.
So I basically stayed in Bournemouth, Southbourne, in a boarding school run by the De La Salle brothers, and but people think it was a posh school. Well, it wasn't. It was entirely paid for by expatriates. Employment, because their kids couldn't go with them to other countries. So it was a fairly ordinary school, and I know it was, a religious school. I wasn't religious by this time, but there was no problems for us. It was just a fairly ordinary school, limited bullying, all those sort of bad things we've heard about here. It wasn't a thing there, so I was relieved about that.
What bad things are you talking about?
Well, the Royal Commission into Child Abuse,
Got it.
which has been very big here.
So, when did the family leave Singapore then? And was there a good reason?
They finished their employment,
Oh, okay.
so they came back since '66, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the same time that I went into the BBC. I went straight into a job.
Okay, I got some pictures, everyone. So that is Studio One. I do have a question for you. How many studios were there back then?
Oh, lots. It was a big circular building, and the whole of the ground floor was these large studios. So and obviously a lot of smaller studios in there. But yes, I must tell you that when I went to a school in England to do the fifth form, they said to me, "Oh, you're obviously hopeless to all these subjects you've been doing. Marks are terrible." So they changed it all to science subjects, and that's how I got. I spent the last year in prior to the finishing exam years. Just learning new subjects, but they all fitted me, science, chemistry, technical drawing, that sort of thing. So when I did go to boarding school, I was doing a limited number of subjects. In those days, you did a limited number of subjects in your final 2 years that got you a job. And I did I did physics and pure maths and applied maths. And that's when I started my interest in radio. We had a radio club there, and I organised that.
I see.
And so I then wanted to go into technical work. So I applied to go into electronics, including the BBC, Pi, other companies, and I got 5 offers. So that when I was past my finishing exams, I was accepted by the BBC.
Which were the other 4 offers?
Well, there were electronics companies that offered what were called sandwich courses, where you went and did half the time with them and half the time at university or college. But they would have been much more boring. The BBC sounded good fun.
So in 66, how old were you then? And after you finished school, so that would be
18.
18? That's
Yeah.
what I thought. Yeah, 18. So let's look
So
at
that's
that picture of the BBC. So this is the Studio One today. This is Studio One in the 50s.
Yeah.
Not too much has changed, I don't think.
Well, apart from the fact that everything else in the building has become 900 flats.
That's right. So here we have BBC TV Centre 57 years ago or so, and now it's 900 flats.
Yeah, they still use the studios for they contract them out, I think. But the rest of the infrastructure, all the offices and everything, were converted into flats.
Oh, so when you say flats, you're talking about residential units,
Yes,
right?
yes. That's the old one that I'm looking at now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the I've just seen what the works that went on in there, because they've now developed a whole TV area next to Broadcasting House in central London. And because all the equipment's got smaller, they're able to have really tiny studios, tinier than yours.
Yeah, well, yeah, I actually want to talk about equipment, the evolution of, broadcast equipment, but not quite yet. I got more pictures of yours I want to show. I do have one of your letter of appointment, which kind of does give you a clue as to how old you were, because it tells you what pay you would get for the first year close to your 19th birthday. That's pretty pitiful, 740 pounds per annum for that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess back in those days, 700 pounds was quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I lived in an apartment and, went to the pub frequently. So, I mean, hey, what more do you want?
Was there a pub on site?
Oh, we had clubs. We had a club. So, yes, the bar and meals. Because, I mean, sometimes I used to have a shift that would start at midday and finish at midnight. And so, evening meal would be there and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So you were telling me that so you were engaged as a technical assistant. So you're telling me that you had to have you had to be there for 16 weeks, a residential training type of situation.
Yes, that was out at miles away from London, Evesham. Wood Norton Hall was the building. It used to be used in the war, Second World War. For military use. It's now the BBC Training Centre. So we all did stuff there. A beautiful house with barracks all around it. That's where we stayed.
So have a look at your iPad. I've got a picture up of the bunker.
Yeah.
But your training, your accommodations, I think that's a picture of it. Is that right?
No, that's another thing. There were lots of sheds, like huts, along, and that's how we lived. We had intensive training by on-site volunteers, well, not volunteers, but engineers from, on the job who wanted to work there and live there for a time. Oh. And so we had nothing but the best. They knew what the job was involved. Oh, there we are. There, I can see the huts now. That's where we stayed. The bunker is an interesting thing. We discovered this bunker 6 stories down under the ground. It was used in the Second World War, and it was now used. It's been for the Cold War. The sort of spying on Russia and a bunker that was supposedly secure against nuclear attack, or well, not totally secure. I got into it one day because they were repairing the roof because rain was getting in. So I don't know how good it would have been with nuclear waste, But the thing is that it was meant to be one of the last places the BBC broadcasted from if we were attacked by nuclear missiles. Oh. And so I've only just found out the other day that the Vera Lynn song "We'll Meet Again" was going to be the last song they played. And I don't sort of agree with them that we'd meet again after being attacked by nuclear missiles. But anyway, that was the sort of thinking at the time.
So tell me if I'm right. This picture there, that is the actual building above ground, or and the bunker 6 stories below that building?
Yes,
is that right? Is that what it means?
Yes, that's the way into it, yes.
Yeah. So what I understand is, as you said, just for those who might have got a little confused, this building is actually separate from the BBC studios, and it was it primarily used as a listening station, enemy listening station? That was its main function, but also it was a purpose-built school, which conducted the activities that you were involved in, right? And it was also a bunker in case of a nuclear attack, because this was during the Cold War period.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's all on, the only reason I know all about this in such detail now is because I looked it all up, and it's all kind of open source now on Google. But no, I'm confusing you, because there's a wonderful house just near that, which is a stately home, was the actor's school.
Yeah, I've got the picture up, the stately home. That's the Wood Norton,
where all the lessons were held. And
this is where the lessons were held. Okay.
Yeah, so it's now a hotel, and they obviously don't train people anymore. In fact, most places don't train people anymore. In those days, you did get a good training to do the job, There we are, Wood Norton Hall, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I found this picture on TripAdvisor, I think. So anyone who's interested in reliving, to experience a bit of Tony's life, or just curious, could go stay for a night or two at this hotel.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that the BBC still kept a place or so in this compound, or was this long time ago? Even though it's now a hotel, but...
Oh, well, I mean, I think they disbanded the actual BBC. It was going to be for all the technicians to keep transmissions going.
Ah, okay.
So that, they could tell people what was happening. And I think that's what it was for. There was a wind-up aerial as well for shortwave.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it was all fanciful stuff because, these things hadn't got a hope of surviving, basically, Just on a serious note, I want to go back to the school years.
Yes.
There was one day that, this is the sort of thing that we had to live with, actually, was that there was one day where I actually went to school, and we went to our school playing fields, not knowing if we'd come home safely that night, because that was the middle of the crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis. There was a stalemate, and there was, they were threatening war would happen if the Cubans didn't turn back the Russian ships with the missiles. Mm. Well, anyway, they blinked and they got sent back. But we were just like, that's what we thought would happen. We might not actually survive the day.
How did that feel like?
Well, I don't know. I kind of, it was like, oh, well.
I ask because when I encounter shock, my feelings just disappear. My emotions disappear. I feel like a statue in the face of whatever it is that shocked me. And I think I'll be really bad, not bad, but I wouldn't be great at, events that require me to cry, because I think because of the way I react to shock, I just don't respond to anything.
Yes, well, that's the way it works on you, and yeah, I suppose I just carried on doing the sport. Just we did the day. I kind of that's the way I cope with it.
And I guess there weren't cell phones there, so you couldn't text all your friends and relatives and say, take care, goodbye, or whatever. You just had to deal with it. Whatever
I
it
don't.
was going to be.
Yeah, well, I don't think we had a home phone at that point.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I mean, because we're talking about well, what are we talking about? Early 60s, anyway. Yeah, it must have been early 60s when I was at boarding school. No, I wasn't. I was prior to anything. It was, yeah, when I was about 10 or 11.
So, yeah, Cuban Missile Crisis, October 1962.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
It's all coming back. This is all going to make a good book, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll have had you doing all my research.
Well, I'll be your co-author.
You're on.
So I went to Google Maps to take a quick snapshot of where I thought things were. I might be wrong, but that's Evesham Road. Am I in the right area? I guess you see.
Evesham, the village of Evesham.
I guess you see the picture in a second.
Well, I can tell you that I saved a lot of lives there.
Right.
The stories. Let's have a look. BBC Wood Norton Hall. Yeah, it's even called BBC.
Yeah.
Still, so maybe they do own some of it.
I think they still. I guess. I'm just guessing that to let go of the lot would be letting go of valuable history completely. So maybe.
Oh, the BBC don't mind. They wiped all the early Doctor Who's.
Yeah, no, that's coming up in pictures. I do have
a story there about being at Wood Norton Hall is that we used to go every night to the bar in Evesham town itself. And we used to, the BBC club was there, 5K out, and we had a bus in and out. But they wisely stopped the bus running, or they sent the last bus back at half an hour before the bar closed. Oh. So we, my friends and I used to, there they are, my friends from those days. We all walked back. And at one point, there was a side street in this country lane, a side road. They all lay down in the road and say, oh, isn't the sky looking beautiful and everything like that. And I heard a car in the distance, and I said to them, if that car comes around this corner, you're all going to get run over. And they go, oh, because they're all drunk, of course. And even me, though, I tend to go sober. It's like you were talking about. I go cold and sober. I said, no, I think the car might come around the corner. And it was a bend. It wasn't a T-junction either. So, it would have gone splat. Anyway, they all got up in the end and went to the side of the road and zoom, the car went past. I said, well, I saved all your lives. Remember that.
I'm going to guess where you are. Are you middle row 5 from the left? Is that you? The telltale sign is your lower jaw. Despite your glasses and, facial hair and all, your lower jaw is the part that distinguishes you from everyone else.
Okay, well, that's correct.
Yes.
And the person next to me on my right, he moved into London at the same time as I did. And so we spent a lot of time in that couple of years hanging out in pubs together. Oh. Several other good friends that I met years later. One guy there, I met him on Glasgow railway station 25 years later, and he was going up. He'd been in the BBC the entire time, editing a Scottish crime drama.
Wow!
And he was up
What's
there.
What's it called?
Oh, I wish I could remember, but Yeah, can't remember. But he was trying to get the job again, the contract to do it again for another season. And so we met on the railway station. He couldn't believe it. He was almost in shock at the fact that I just come over from Australia for a visit.
Wow. What's his name? Do you remember his name?
Martin Sharp.
Martin, if
Not
you're out there.
Yeah, well, he might see it. He might see it. You never know.
So I have more pictures, this time of the BBC. This was a training manual that you had to study, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of, well, in 16 weeks, it was quite intense to learning all about how to, we even built a valve amplifier as part of the course.
That would be a good skill to have, even in today's
absolutely.
terms. Yeah. Then I have a picture of a regular camera operator guy. This wasn't VTR yet, right? This was 35mm film. Yes.
No, we had VTR as well.
VTR already. So
here we had 2-inch tape.
Yeah. So here's a picture of a VTR, video tape recorder machine, for those in case who are wondering.
You can see how you've already seen this, I suppose. The camera is huge. We used to have to align all the colors, not the colors, it was black and white, okay? So we had to align all the equipment. Most of the equipment of a camera was bigger than the camera. It was the control unit used to be in the side of the studio. So, and the same with the VTR, as I can see now, hundreds of controls that we had to align, adjust before every recording.
So from my research, it seems the BBC started using videotape about 7 or so years before you landed on landed on BBC. But it was still black and white at that time, because color only came in 1 year later, from what I understand, 1967. And it seems the BBC 2, I guess that's Studio 2, had the first color.
No, the second channel.
Second channel. Thank you. I needed that clarification. Yeah, it seems that they got the first color TV service in Europe.
Look, I was there just at the changeover, and it was fascinating because a Magical Mystery Tour Beatles movie was being shown in colour on television, and I had to travel on the tube to, I've even forgotten it, Alexander Palace, the one with the tower on it, where the club there had a TV, colour TV, and I watched Magical Mystery Tour. But yes, I mean, it was a big changeover, and not many people had colour televisions at the time.
Wow. So from what I understand, though, that you chose outside broadcasting to work in. Is that a picture of what a workplace would look like for you? This roving reporter?
Yes. I mean, we did church services like songs of praise, football matches, all sorts of things like that. Miss World. I did Miss World, I think, in 1967.
Wow.
8. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was Miss Peru. So for those people who are busy looking up things, it was the year that Miss Peru won. And I had to dress up in a dinner jacket like all the other crew did. And we hired them all. And at the end of it, of course, there was one point where all the women who were in the contest were crowded round a monitor, which failed. And so I said, stand back, ladies, stand back, and I brought in another spare and connected it up, and smiling. It was good fun. And at the end of it, we sat with Miss World down in the basement of the Lyceum, drinking brown ale. And she'd been told that the press had been told that she'd gone off to a hotel, so she was hiding, and then as soon as she could get out without any press. So there we were, hola, trying our Spanish on her, it was fantastic.
Yeah,
we had so much fun doing those shows.
Yeah. So you were trained in film and videotape, right? What would you
No, not much film. No,
Oh,
it was videotape that we
okay.
did when we were out.
Mm.
A lot of things were recorded on film after they'd been made, so they could be sold overseas. So a lot of
Oh,
telecine was sent overseas.
all right. Okay, well, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. Um,
Mm.
do you feel on a technical level, I suppose, that you'd rather film to videotape, or you're quite happy with what you get from videotape? Because there are some subtle differences for some people.
Oh yes, look, I'm a technician, not a filmmaker as such, and I leave that to other people. Uh, but in those days, the videotape was pretty rough,
Mm.
so you'd get a better result with film. But these days, I mean, it's all digital, and so it's a moot point.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I have more pictures that you kindly offered. Here's a picture of a record cutter, a
Yes, I've
vinyl
actually got a
record.
record at the moment that I salvaged. I had to do training 2 weeks in every department in the BBC, including outside broadcast. That's how I knew I wanted to do it. But at one point where I had to cut records that are full of sound effects to be played during a program.
Okay.
So basically, you'd have a tape recorder playing these sounds, and you'd cut into the disc. And the reason why you would do that is it's easy to cue. You can
Ah.
find the sounds. It's
Oh,
an
yeah.
aluminium disc covered in, vinyl, and this would directly cut out a groove. And that was fun doing it. And I've actually got one of those records here, which still plays.
So I've got a few comments from our friends. My dear friend Mike Flavin, who's from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, he had to say, as we were talking about drinking, he said, drinking stories are the best.
I've got a few more actually coming up, but
And
including the one about how I left the BBC.
oh no, were you kicked out because you were drinking? Don't tell us yet. hold that one. And our dear friend Bill Stewart, he says, trust me, I'm a technician, quote unquote.
Yes, Bill. You
And
can try.
my dear friend Mike Brandt from Eugene, Oregon, who is originally from Britain. I don't know which part of the UK though. Mike, you might have to tell us, but he loves his beverage of choice, and he says, "I like all those pubs." And Mike Flavin again, he did say when you mentioned the Miss World, it's Miss World pageant, right? That you
I
were
guess,
working at.
yes. It was called the Miss World contest in those
All
days.
right. So Mike Flavin from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, he said, I once did house audio for a pageant. It was the Miss New York finals.
Uh-huh. Yes, he'll know the story then, yes. He'll know what fun it is.
All right. So, yeah, okay. So tell us what happened to you at the BBC. What took place with. Actually, no. I do have pictures of. I do have more pictures, but this time it's Doctor Who pictures, so hold your
Ah,
horses.
yes.
Okay, Doctor Who pictures coming up.
Nothing like an early Doctor Who. Uh, Doctor Who, well, it was only when I started looking at this project that you asked me to do, is that I discovered that it wasn't the first Doctor Who that I was in the studio with. It was the second series with Patrick Troughton. And the reason I know this is that Jamie, the little Scottish guy that was his assistant,
Ah,
uh, oh, there we are, yes. I saw him one day coming out of a betting office, they call it the bookies there. And I said, oh, hi, Jamie, and he was in the second series.
ah,
So I did a bit of Googling about Doctor Who, and God, there's a lot there, isn't there?
yeah. So Tony is absolutely right. In 1966, the second Doctor, the regeneration of the first Doctor, who was William Hartnell, he became Peter Troughton, the
Yeah,
second Doctor, and it seems.
Patrick.
Sorry, Patrick. What did I
Yeah,
say? I don't know what I said.
Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, we Doctor Who fans are very particular, you
I'm
know.
sorry. Yeah, when I utter when I'm not quite looking, it's because I'm looking at something else. So thank you for jumping in there
Oh,
and correcting me, Patrick.
yes.
So it seems that the first production of the Doctor Who series ran from 1963 to 89. That's quite substantial. And it's still
Mm,
going strong when it came back. When it was rebooted, it's been going
yeah.
really strong.
Well, it can go on forever now.
Yeah, and I have also a picture of the Daleks. 1966 picture of the Daleks.
Mm.
Nothing's
Well,
changed much.
the trivial story here is that Jamie caught chicken pox
Oh, no.
and had missed two filmings, two episodes. So they got another chap in, and apparently the Daleks or something ripped his face off, and they had to replace his face. You see, so this is how they managed to get another actor in for a couple of weeks. And,
Well, I
yeah,
know where Jamie got the chicken pox from the Daleks.
yeah. I mean,
See,
you know, you've got to watch them.
my friend Sam from Sydney, Australia, he wants to know who your favorite doctor is, if you have one.
Oh, I think the first one, William Hartnell.
For me, I think I started watching when Tom Baker came on. At least the series that I started watching from. I never did see the first three Doctors. I should go and check them out.
You won't be able to. They wiped them.
So it seems, sadly.
I'll have to tell you all the stories, and you'll have to imagine them.
So the first Doctor was your favorite Doctor, then you said.
Well, yes, I mean, I got right into it. You know, I was watching all
Oh.
those science fiction BBC films at the time. You know, there was quite a good selection of things then.
So I have a picture of Delia Derbyshire. She, of
Mhm.
course, she worked at the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, and that's her cutting tape according to the picture. Because
Yeah,
obviously, she was using reel-to-reel or tape machine, so the only way to get components out of that is to slice. So that's what cutting tape means. But
exactly. I had to actually cut the videotape that way, 2-inch wide
oh,
tape,
right,
the
wow,
microscope.
yeah, yeah.
You actually cut it. But yes, and also I noticed Delia, Daphne Oram was there.
She was
And she,
the one of the first people who worked there, didn't isn't she? If I'm not
yes,
wrong.
and she used to compose by drawing on film, blank, celluloid,
Yeah.
and playing it through, and it produced sounds.
So yeah, there you go. And of course, bit about Delia is that back to her pictures, and of course she rendered composer Ron Grainer's theme for
Mm,
Doctor Who using oscillators, tape, and blade, and that was it.
yeah.
And Ron Grainer is an Australian. Is Ron Grainer still around? I don't know.
Mm.
But if he's not, he was Aussie. If he is, congratulations, he is Aussie. uh,
Well, yes, and I think this is probably where I started getting interested. The Doctor Who theme was
oh,
probably where I started my interest in moving into that field.
oh, I see. Interesting. So, a little trivia. The radiophonic workshop began in 58, lasted for about 40 years, and it was created to produce incidental sounds and new music for radio and TV. Did you actually get to hear anything out of the radiophonic workshop, Tony? Did you ever put
Um,
your ear next to the door or the window or
well,
whatever?
they weren't even there where I worked. We had buildings all over London, and they weren't there. And I found out it was just an obscure location, so I wouldn't have heard directly, but I must have heard things on the radio,
Hmm.
but not really aware of it. No.
So I've got a picture of the Maida Vale studios where the radiophonic workshop was housed. I think this
It
is
was.
a.
You know more than I do where it was housed.
I've never
Yeah.
been there, but so this is a fairly current photo. I think I don't know if much has changed, but that's what it's called, and it's pronounced correctly, Maida, even though it's spelled
Yes.
M-A-I. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. Maida Vale. Yeah, I used to have to go to all these different places for various jobs, you know, or to do things, or to install things, or to repair things. So yes, um, but unfortunately, no. I would have loved to have been involved.
Yeah, it would be cool. But you did get to see bands walk in and out doing
Oh.
live TV. Do you have any fun stories to tell?
Well, yes, I was in a studio once when this Mississippi Fred, I think it was Mississippi Fred McDowell from the US, came across, a blues singer, and he had a table and he attached all these things to it so he could hit things with his knees to create the rhythm.
Oh,
And
wow.
a Delta blues guy, you know, and that was fantastic. He was really old then, so
Ah.
you know he won't be around now. That was I used to see all sorts of amazingly interesting things there. One thing was I was a hippie then, a part-time hippie. I dress up in a jacket and trousers during the day, and then at night I would have beads and bells and things like that, and my mates and I would, you know, we were adopting the hippie ethos in a way. And in fact, that brings up another story that I was dragged into the boss's office one day, and they said, "Look, your hair," he said. He was absolutely mortified. He was so embarrassed. He said, "Your hair, Tony, your hair is too long." And I said, "What's wrong with it?" He goes, "Oh, you know," and he was getting redder and redder. And he said, "What happens if we sent you to the Queen's broadcast? What would happen then?" And I said, "Well, I don't know."
I'll tie it up.
Yeah, well, you know, I still kept it, basically. It wasn't long by any standards. It was like the Beatles, you know.
Could you have
But,
flown into Singapore and be let in?
well, in those days, it was prior to them worrying about the length of your hair. But, you know, even then, I had a school haircut so that I wouldn't have been any trouble then. But, you know, it's that sort of thing. But anyway, I'm getting to the story because I once walked in at lunchtime in my sports jacket and trousers into a place where everybody was sleeping around the studio in sleeping bags. And the BBC had thought, I know what, let's have a happening here, you know, and film it. Because everybody was having festivals everywhere. And so they had this crazy idea of having 24 hours inside a studio with people sleeping there, rough.
Oh, I think I saw a photograph somewhere. I should have downloaded it. People in sleeping bags. Was it in Studio One?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw the picture.
Photo. Fantastic. Well, anyway, I went in there and Cream had just set up.
Oh, yeah.
And they were the loudest thing I had ever heard. Yeah, I forget which song it was, but boy, was it good.
So I have a picture of Cream in the BBC.
Yes, well, they were on a stage in the middle and all these people sleeping around, you know. And it was all dark, very, very dark, except for the lights on the stage.
That
you
is
know.
so funny. So
Yeah.
I've got a few comments from the viewers. Sam in Sydney, Australia says, "Oh no, we've seen that one." He said about William Hartnell's episodes, and he agrees with you. A lot of missing episodes from season 1 and 2. And my friend Mike Brunt says he was born in Burnley near Liverpool. Burnley
okay.
Lancs. Yeah, I
Yes.
remember now. The Burnley boy.
Burnley.
Burnley.
That's how they say it. Burnley.
How do you say it?
Oh, I'm not going to do it again. I'm getting self-conscious. Now, I'm actually going to take 2 seconds to plug in my power because I'll disappear suddenly. And maybe people will be glad about that. I don't know. But I'm just going to have to... You keep talking.
Sure.
I can hear... This is so professional, isn't it?
So while Tony is away, the cat will play. But yeah, We do need maybe like that passive listening device type powering or empowerment that Leon created for our devices, so we don't have to run to search for power every time we're low. There must be a way.
I tell you, we're so dependent on power and internet that when my grandchildren come round here and they say, "Oh, all the power's out, can we watch television?"
That is so
You know,
funny.
and they say, "Oh, I will watch something on the internet then." I go, "No, you know."
So back to the BBC. Did you like working there?
Yes, but I didn't get thrown out. I resigned, and I resigned when I was in a pub. I decided I was going to leave. I wanted to travel around Europe. I wanted not to work in a job forevermore. I mean, I hadn't been anywhere. I'd gone straight from school to work. The older guys weren't a good example. They were all drinkers, serious drinkers. And I thought, well, you know, I like a tipple, but I certainly don't want to end up like them. So I actually resigned, and everybody goes, "What on earth are you doing?" And I said, you know, no, I just, you know, I can't bear it. So anyway, I resigned. I had a month's notice. And then 3 days later, after I resigned, I was at Royal Ascot, where the Queen was, I think. Yeah. But anyway, certainly it's royal, you know, it's the racing. Yeah. And I actually had an accident there because I'd set up, you know, that picture of the truck with the telescopic tower. Yes. Well, when that comes down, you put a ladder up against it and you go up and you do things with the aerials and then you raise it. Well, I was transferred halfway through the day when I'd had a couple of drinks at lunch. And I climbed up the ladder, undid the bolts, pulled the thing out, and it pulled me right off the ladder. So you can imagine, I came down quite a long way. A broken arm. I chewed through the inside of my cheek.
With your own teeth, you mean? Like you bit off your cheek?
My face hit the... you can see how high you would be, but my feet were about the height of the top of the truck.
Yeah.
I went over backwards. Anyway, you know, I was a bit of a mess, went to hospital. They took me home. And for the rest of the month's notice, I was half sick.
Oh, no.
So I left pretty quickly.
Did you leave after that month or...
Well, no, that was the month's notice. You know, I
sorry.
would work that month's notice.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a picture up of that roving reporter van so that you, the viewers can see, our friends can see the antenna and so on and so forth.
Well, that one with the exploded diagram is a bit older than what I was in, but it's similar idea. We had all these things to service. That's we had a depot in Acton.
Got it. So my next picture, of course, is of Rome, Italy, and there's a reason why.
Oh, well, I took to the road, you know, in the true tradition of the hippies, and decided just to go. I was actually going to go to Australia because I'd met a whole load of Australian girls in the apartment downstairs from where I used to live, and they always having parties and everything, you know. Well, they were a lot of fun. So I was heading out towards Australia, but I only got as far as Rome, and fabulous place, mind you. And I met up with a few people, and some people had been in the Peace Corps and were coming back, going back home to America. But they knew people there in Rome, and they offered to put me up. And so I sort of settled down there for a few weeks. A month or two, yeah. It wasn't very long, but we did a lot.
So what I remember you telling me was that you never stopped being a tinkerer. You ended up building record players and wah-wah pedals. A strange mixture, or a strange pairing. Is there a reason why record players and wah-wah pedals?
It was just what people wanted. You know, this guy said to me, "I'd be great to have a record player." And so we bought the parts, and and put it all together. And he wanted this gaudy cabinet. It was all plywood, and he put Italian tiles all over it and made it like a big box, but the sound was good, that's for sure. And then other people wanted some, so we started a little bit of
a side business.
Yeah, well,
What were you? Did you split? Was your split 50-50 or 60-40 or what was it?
Oh, I really don't know how the money went. Actually, I guess we were hippies. We didn't care about money.
Was he the business front?
No. We just had well, I can't even tell you. He brought back some drugs from where he was posted in the Peace Corps. We worked our way through those.
Got it. Okay, I got it. And the next picture I have, I think it's in the right order, is the University of Sussex. And there's a story behind that too.
Came back from Italy, through France, just after they'd had the May uprising. Not just after, it was September. But there were still police everywhere. No one would give me a lift. No one, we were treated very badly. I managed to borrow some money to get back to the UK. So I had no money. I owed the ferry company money. I talked my way onto the ferry.
Wow.
And so all in all, I was in a pretty dire strait. But I also had enough of these examination results to get into university. So I went round to my local education authority and said, look, I want to go to university. It's September, right? A few weeks away. But it's they call it clearing. It's when they fill up all the untaken seats, I think it's called second something or other here. But anyway, I said that I'd like to go to university. So I got inundated with offers of universities.
Well, but you applied to them before you got the offers, right? They didn't just come flooding because they knew Tony Falla was back in town.
No. All you have to do is write down you're looking for a place in electronics.
Oh.
And then you get
handy.
offers sent to you by places. And half of them I didn't even know where they were. I had to ask somebody where the University of Sussex was because, I didn't know it was in Brighton.
Yeah.
Anyway, they said, oh, yeah, you'll love it down there. Lots of drugs, they say. Yeah.
Who is this they?
Oh, my friends, my hippie friends. They all seem to have a one-track mind, to tell you the truth. And I was always a disappointment to them because I was always interested in doing something. And so if I was stoned or something, it was, holding me up. That's why I gave it all up, you see, because I wanted to do things.
It's so funny. So I got a photo of you as a member of the staff at the psychology department at the University of Sussex. And of course you have your back facing the camera. And all we see is this long hair you were telling us a while ago.
I've misled you. That is later. In Nottingham.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it shows that there they are. Yes, this is quite a few years later.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry.
In Sussex, I did a course. I met somebody. We had a baby, and the university, in their wisdom, let me work as a technician in the holidays to help cope with it all.
Oh, okay. Got it.
My partner, my wife, she did some. We alternated. She did work. I went to uni. She came home. And that sort of thing. We swapped over. So it took about 4 years to get the full degree. Well, she got a degree. I didn't. I didn't complete it. It was too difficult having a child to look after with practical stuff. I couldn't work from home. Oh. Anyway, long story short. But I did actually start working as a technician. Mm. And it was at Sussex University that I met that guy in music, which maybe you'll ask me about next.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. So this is a different psychology department from the picture.
Yes. Psychology is the actual thing that I did both places. They needed lots of electronics.
All right.
equipment.
So from what I understand of what you told me, you were full time at the electronics department at the Uni of Sussex, but part time or holiday time at the psychology department. Is that right? Or
Yeah.
am I wrong?
Okay. At university, between the years of 69, 68 and 72, I was a student at the University of Sussex, part-time. And I was also part-time working in the Department of Psychology, working on electronics, where I work with a person who became extremely famous.
Got it. You were a student with a holiday job.
Yeah.
And your holiday job enabled you to get components to fuel your hobby, which was building electronics. And you happened to meet up with the film composer who wanted to use some of your electronics.
He was a student in music, Amit Sen.
Let's see if
and I don't know how I remembered that name all the way through, but the other day I looked him up.
Amit Sen's a little write-up that Tony handed
and
me.
he's done big movies. But at the time, he said to me, "I hear you've got some electronic circuits that'll make noises." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I'm doing a play for music, and I want the music department. I want to be able to have a soundtrack to it." And so basically, he and his colleagues came to me, and they said, "Can you make a wee, all that sort of thing?" And we did, and they recorded it and edited it all together and produced the music. And then only the other day, as I said, I discovered that he has gone on for so far.
Yeah.
And he's actually teaching at the London School of Video or something.
Oh, okay. So with go on, please.
Sorry?
Oh, I was just going to ask you, so with your, I want to show pictures of the synthesizers you built. At least you have two pictures which kind of show
how they survived those
analog
pictures.
Yeah, so here's...
I've got some more in negative form, which I've got to get the scanner out and convert. There's a few, I've got a few envelopes full of negatives that... one day might reveal themselves. But these particular pictures were things I developed years ago when I had a photographic hobby. Chemicals, the lot, nothing digital.
Got it. So here's a picture of Tony's daughter, Dominique, with one of his analog synths that he built. Looks like it's got a patchboard style.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Look,
that I can see.
I was impressed by the idea of a matrix patchboard, and I bought one, very expensive. Yes, there we go. I bought a keyboard, a blank keyboard with the gold-plated contacts, and I bought the thing. Now, Dominic's 50-something, so she was 8 then, that's how long ago it was. I'm looking at the picture now. Yeah, I had, I built modules. This is before I knew about modular construction, you see. But they're basically an aluminium panel with controls on it, and behind the circuit board. And then you could mix and match them. And they all went through the pin board, the patch board. And I think I only got rid of that patch bay a couple of years ago, on eBay.
Oh, you sold it?
Yeah. The synth itself was made out of plywood, and it had a front panel and a keyboard panel. I painted it purple, of course,
of course,
hippie colours, and half built it because I never really completed it. But we used to play with it, my friends and I, and. Yeah.
Did you seek out references, or did it just come to mind? It was all your own.
At the time, that was early days, prior to me studying it properly, and so I kind of built things out of things I already knew about, oscillators, filters, and things like that. Quite honestly, I can't remember how I did it. There's certain things that I think, how did I do that? And
I
that's one of
do
them.
recall you telling me that you made several visits to the Audio Engineering Society library
Yes,
for research.
but that was years later.
Oh, it was later.
Yeah, a couple of years later, when I started wanting to probably make sure it sounded a bit better,
Got it.
do a bit of research. This was just off the cuff, really, things that I'd learned in my electronics course.
Of course. And you're telling me that you did look up Robert Moog's diagram and a paper?
Well, that's right. That's what I did when I moved up to Nottingham. I used to go regularly to look at the Journal of the Audio Engineering Society magazines. But this was still in Brighton. This was still in Brighton while we were at university.
So I'm displaying the snapshots you gave me. One of Bob Moog's schematics, and the other is his write-up, his paper, or part of his paper.
Yes. Yeah, it was wonderful to be able to do that, to actually see his circuits, his I'm trying to remember the exact sequence of events now. Yes, because it was shortly after this period that I then went to London to work at EMS, and it was because of my interest that, anyway, jumping ahead. Those circuits and things like that, very, very informative, And what I had to do was hand write them, take a pencil and paper when I went to the library that had these magazines and copy them out, because I certainly didn't have access to any photocopying or anything like that.
So I've got displayed one of such handwritten, sketched out schematics, and I hope it's the right reference to that particular sketch.
Yes, I hope it is too. It was funny. I've still got a card system here, and there we go. There was something from the J. Yes, you could see that I'd written on the front the actual reference, and on the back I'd sketched the circuit out.
Yeah.
And there's a few that have survived from those days.
So here's one. Tony is very neat. I am not neat at all.
Well, another one I sent you was pretty rough. I sort of almost went off the card.
Yeah, I think so. This pair I managed to match. That's one that's pretty full that you sent me.
Yeah.
But I don't have the reference. I don't know where which journal or what year this one came from. But so from here, we have the final leg of chapter 2, which is you start to tell us about it. You went off to to see if you could dip your fingers in the EMS land back.
Yeah. Well, I again, look, I've actually just seen a diagram flash up, which is a filter. And that's what I use for my wah-wah pedals. It's called a finite state. What is it called? A finite state filter? I can't remember now. Okay. It's all jumbled. But it's a special filter using operational amplifiers, which are little integrated circuits. Mm-hmm. And it used to have a tremendously wide range of sounds. So it was a very, very almost oscillating. You could actually get it to oscillate. And that's obviously one of the keys to the sound of a synthesizer, that they were on the verge of oscillation, Yeah. So yes, a finite state filter or something. I can't remember. Anyway, but look, here is the period when we stopped being in Brighton. We were looking for somewhere to live. Brighton was horrendously expensive to buy a house. So at that time, I wrote to EMS just off the cuff and said, look, I've been doing these synthesizer things at home. Would you give me a job? And they said yes. Wow. I mean, wow, yes, indeed. And so what happened was that I went to live in London to do this job while my wife and some friends and my daughter went off looking around England for somewhere to live. And they were camping and, what have you. And I lived in this student accommodation that was empty at the moment. I sort of pretty rough. Everything's pretty rough in those days. But I went along to Putney, to the EMS Electronic Music Studios. Peter Zinoviev had started it and was making the VCS3. So I got a job there, believe it or not.
So again, history buffs, the Putney, as Peter Zinoviev's home studio is nicknamed or was nicknamed. Remember Delia Devashai? She and her colleague Brian Hodgson, members of the Radiophonic Workshop, they teamed up with Peter to form Unit Delta Plus, an organization based from the Putney, from Peter's home studio, to create and produce electronic music, basically promote and produce. But they didn't last very long. Within a year or so, they disbanded, so to speak. And Peter thought, well, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to form EMS, a synthesizer company with David Cockrell and Tristram Carey, who is also known as a pioneer in music concrete on the UK side. Coincidentally, he also scored the first episodes of Doctor Who, so William Hartnell's season, and he's most well known for scoring episodes The Daleks, Marco Polo, The Daleks Master Plan, The Gunfighters, and The Mutants.
Wow, that's pretty thorough.
Thank you. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing well.
Exactly. You're after my own heart there. Well, yes. But Tristram Carey, maybe Jim can talk about this or write about it.
I had Tristram as a tutor at Adelaide.
Yes, he was at LaTrobe, wasn't he?
I was at Adelaide, Elder Conservatorium when he was my tutor.
Well, exactly. That's a connection. I met him too, I believe. Again, not that he remembered me.
I don't think he remembered.
I wasn't very memorable. I went along to work there, and they sent me to Cricklewood, which is where David Cottrell did all his designs. And I was supposed to work with David, you see. Oh. And David looked at me and said, "What can you do?" And I go, "Not much." I was only there a few days, and they said, "Oh, this guy's no good."
Why did you say not much?
Well, I couldn't. I wasn't very good at the electronics. I mean, I'd done something, but he designed the VCS3, for goodness sake. I mean...
Well, why did they give you the job then?
The business plan of Peter Zinoviev and EMS wasn't fantastic, as you can guess.
Well, what was the plan? Because we don't know.
No, well, they didn't know. That was the thing.
They didn't have a plan.
Well, I don't know how much I can say, but anyway, the thing is, if you could take somebody like me off the street and say, you can work for us, you can't have a good idea about, running the place, because I was completely inexperienced. The equivalent of a snotty-nosed kid coming in saying, "I'd like to, work with you." Anyway, the thing is that what happened was that they sent me back to Putney, and they go, so I became a demonstrator because I did know about them. I had made noises. I knew how to wiggle joysticks and things. So, I looked confident. And I worked with showing people stuff, demonstrating it, sales. What would be, music shop sales these days?
Who was your boss? Who did you answer to?
Peter Zinoviev himself. He was in that. It's in his house.
Yeah.
This studio and the rooms we were in his house in Putney, backing onto the Thames. Lovely location.
I've got video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Hold on. Here it comes.
Peter Zinoviev has a hobby which is strictly for boffins. He keeps it in his garden shed, and it's called Digital PDP 803S. Yes, it's a computer, and it has a...
Yeah, I don't think I can show much more in case YouTube decides to X the stream. So, but that little clip shows you Peter's garden, and I think the studio was in the basement, wasn't it?
It was. It overlooked. Oh, wow. Yeah, there has been a documentary on SBS here
Yeah.
about what happened to it all. Well, that's the place. Yes, I was in there. The other guy was that I worked with in the same room, sort of thing, was a great guy, and I can't remember his name now. But anyway, well, there's two stories come out of that. My adventures there. You want to hear them?
Yes.
Right. One day, Friday, lunchtime, somebody comes into the room, says, "Who wants to go to Switzerland this weekend? Jethro Tull needs, Ian Anderson's called up and wants us to repair their keyboard." And nobody put their hand up, and I'm looking around, I go, "Well, I'll go." And he says, "Right, you've got a passport?" I said, "Well, in my flat." He says, "Right, we'll get a passport." Took me to the airport. I've flown into Geneva. Got a taxi, I think, to Montreux. Met Ian Anderson and all the others in a brick factory where they were rehearsing for a world tour. Everybody rehearsed there. The Stones had been rehearsing there the week before.
The Stones with the bricks?
Yeah. So, there it was. I spent the evening fixing the keyboard. They were experimenting with a VCS3 and a keyboard, external keyboard. So I just changed the board over and everything and chatted to them and told them about other stuff we sell. They took me back to the Montreux Hotel, the big hotel that burnt down later, smoke on the water fame.
Got it. Go on.
Sorry?
No,
I spent the weekend there. I came back through Gatwick Airport. The security, the customs grabbed me and said, "What's all this?" All I had, no toothbrush, no nothing, no clothes, just electronic circuits and a Sulcra guy. Well, I said, "I've just been to see Ian Anderson, Jethro Tull." "Oh, really?" He calls his mates out. They're all standing around me going, "What's it like?" And then that evening I went back to a barbecue at my mother-in-law's. And there I was standing there. I go, nobody's going to believe that what just happened. Fabulous.
So Tony was talking about this synth in particular. 1 second.
Peter Zinoviev.
No, we don't want Peter Zinoviev anymore. But here is actually an interesting. Here was a brochure for the VCS3 that I found online.
Yeah, they had some crazy advertising. Crazy plans for advertising. But, it was a great machine. It was a great machine.
And this is a picture of the trio that we are talking about: Tristram Carey, Peter Zinoviev, and David Cockrell. I pronounce him Cockrell. Do you pronounce it Cottrell?
No, Cockerell.
Cockerell, right? So I got it right. And this is the inside of, I don't know if it's inside the studio. It looks like it's underground.
It was on a slope, right, down to the river, the road here, and the house, and this opened out onto the garden, but it was effectively downstairs. Yes,
okay, and this is Peter with the VCS3.
Yeah. David Cockerell's still working. I think he's working for a big synth company in America at the moment.
Oh, really? Wow. I did see him in some documentaries, though. Oh, no. Yeah, I did. Peter as well. There's some documentaries with him yapping on about, the history of and things like that. So that's the VCS3 to the right of Peter. The original, right? And it has a patch board as well. So it's used.
Yes, well, that's where I must have got the idea from. Because I must have heard about this. This was earlier than I thought. At 69, I think, was when that was produced.
Yeah, that's what it says. For those of you syntheads, you of course know that that took the place of using patch cords to route audio and control signals. So
it was a clever idea.
Yes.
I actually had some ideas about it later, which I thought would have improved it. And
did you tell Peter?
Well, no, they never got the benefit of it. So
That's a pity.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, another thing I did was one day they said to me, David Gilmour's coming in tomorrow. Do you want to show him some stuff? I know, all right, and I did know about Pink Floyd, and they were pretty big,
Yeah.
But I felt totally cool about it. It was like just another person coming in, and there he did. He turned up one afternoon with a lady, possibly his wife now, but I'm not sure if it was the same person. But anyway, they came in. We went into a little side room, and I demonstrated the Synthi A, which is the suitcase version of the VCS3.
So I have a picture of the Synthi A with the keyboard attachment that Thomas Lenn, he's a German synth player, is pictured using here.
Right.
So,
yeah, it was great. I mean, he was a very friendly guy. I've told this story hundreds of times.
Sorry, Tony. Just quickly, for those who don't know, the Synthi A is like a portable version of the VCS3 somewhat.
Yeah, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it now on the stream. Well, we had a lovely afternoon playing with it, messing around. And then I had a cat.
Who had a cat?
Yeah, so it was under the floorboards. I lifted up the floorboards, and there was a cat with 9 kittens.
Oh, boy.
And so his girlfriend, picked the cats up, and we were all playing with the cats and everything. And so that was the end of the demonstration. We had put cats back and covered it over again, and he said, well, I think we'd better go. And it was only years later, which I saw them playing with the Synthi A in the movie about Pompeii, the first one. And,
I've got a picture of Dave Gilmour and Richard Wright with VCS3s in this picture.
I think they had a VCS3 before they had the keyboard, the suit one.
Oh, yeah.
So I wasn't showing them anything new, but as it were, but just anyway. But it was a lovely afternoon, and I've dined out on that story for many, many years. I'd love David to hear about it and just wonder if he remembers it.
Yeah,
that's all.
that would be interesting. You don't have a private line to Dave Gilmour, do you?
Well, somebody might who looks at yours.
So I've got
and that's exactly what he looked like.
Yeah, I can
T-shirt,
imagine.
what have you.
I got a picture of Brian Eno with a Synthi AKS, which is the expanded version of the A. A very young Brian Eno here.
Well, shortly after this, we moved to Nottingham. I won't jump there so far, but I did see Brian Eno in a lecture at the local polytechnic, and we gate crashed it. A friend of mine had told me that he was on, so we snuck in to the lecture. Fabulous listening to him,
I just want to show one last picture for those who are familiar with Moog synths, that the EMS did come up with a competitor too, and it's the Synthi 100, a large-scale modular synth as depicted in this picture. It's huge.
The Synthi 100 was bought, one of them in 71 or 2, was sold to Melbourne Uni.
Oh, do they still have it?
They still have it.
Oh.
Les Craythorne and others have rejigged it. I went down one afternoon to Melbourne to see a short concert at the recital centre, I think it was, using that machine that had been rejigged, repaired.
Wow.
Fabulous. So it still exists. Les Craythorne appears to be its saviour.
Saviour and guardian.
Yeah. But Jim had a lot of modules and things like that at LaTrobe in the music department days.
Okay.
But we haven't got there yet. I wonder how many people are going to be still watching by the end of my rant.
The same few seem to still be here, at least those who are on the live chat section.
Well done, everybody.
They're usually like, I call them the lurkers, the people who kind of, they watch but they're too embarrassed or shy to say hi. I don't know why. But I want to say hi to Michael Neal. He came on board and he said hi. So Hi, Michael. Where are you tuning in from, Michael? Let us know. Also, my friend Mike Brunt, he said, I recall ring modulators early on.
Oh, they were good. They were good.
So,
Yes.
I had a question about, because you're saying that you ended up being a demonstrator and a salesperson. How did that feel like?
Well, I think that started me off showing off
Oh,
myself. I mean, I love finding things out and telling people about it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I realized that it's probably then that I stopped losing my shyness about it all, and was able to tell people that I did actually know something about something.
So how long were you there for before you left EMS?
3 months.
Why 3 months?
Well, because I knew I wasn't doing any good there at all. They were
Oh,
polite and they kept employing me. But I thought, this is ridiculous. I don't contribute much at all. And subsequently, my wife and child were settling down in Nottingham. So we had
oh,
somewhere to live. So I quit and I moved to Nottingham. And
oh,
that's why we were in Nottingham.
oh, okay. So what did you do after that?
Oh, well, I tried to get work everywhere and I got work here, work there. And I ended up in the psychology department at Nottingham University.
Oh, so that's where those pictures apply.
Yeah. And that's where those friends of mine, technicians, I became the manager in the end of
Oh,
the unit. And we made electronic circuits that would measure things like reaction times of people, all sorts of, we had lots of research to do with road traffic accidents,
oh,
children. We had a child development unit. We made toys for them. We had video. We used video, to
oh.
film interactions between parents and children. There was a very famous couple there who ran this institute, and so we worked there. That's what we did.
Oh, okay. All right, now that piece of the puzzle finally fits.
Yeah. I know it's complex, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That's all right. We're gonna go on to chapter 3, which is Australia.
Mm. I was there in Nottingham for 8 years,
Oh, you were?
and then we decided to emigrate, and I quit the job, and we came over here, landed on Boxing Day, 1981.
Why
30 degrees.
Australia? Why not
Yeah,
just
we were in the
another?
snow.
Sorry?
Oh, Australia. That is a story for another time.
Uh-oh.
Yes. Anyway, we went. We went to Albert Park, South Melbourne, and they took me down to the friends that had already arrived earlier, and so we were already had a house to live in, everything. Went down to the beach on a 30-something degree day after minus whatever in England the last month, and it was quite a shock, but it was good. And 2 weeks later, I think it was just 2 weeks, I got a job with Channel 9 because I wrote to them.
I got a picture, but before I do, I'm going to pull in a couple of comments. My friend Mike Brunt says, in Eugene, Oregon, just found a VCS3 Mark II for sale for almost $24,000. This would be US dollars. Then Jim's Austin, our dear friend, they were at least 2 Synthi 100s bought by Australian unis. The second one was Queensland.
All right. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Jim. Michael Spicer, another great friend, he said Monash has one.
Okay.
Not 100 of VCS3. He added that later. Not a 100 VCS.
We've got a couple of VCS3s. And I also played with one in the Granger Centre, which is the music sort of museum at Melbourne Uni. And I took a friend there and demonstrated it to her.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Synthi 100. I guess I gotta pay University of which ones now? Queensland and which is the other one to visit?
Well, I know it's hard to keep these things going because many discrete circuits on them, transistors, resistors, capacitors, all need changing.
Yeah.
With age.
Yeah. If only we could do that with our joints. Oh, please, can I have a replacement of my joints?
Well, you should watch the Orville, the science fiction film. They seem to be able to do that. People get killed in that, and science fiction series, should I say? It's a send-up of Star Trek.
I've seen a couple of episodes with.
Yeah. I got right into it recently.
I forgot his name. The comedian. He's really good with voices.
Seth MacFarlane.
Seth MacFarlane, of course. Yes, voices. Family Guy.
I'm a latecomer to the Seth MacFarlane fan club.
Yeah. Yes, of course. So, Channel 9, I've got a picture of Channel 9 in 1982, at least a set of Family Feud, which is the Australian version adaptation of the American Family Feud.
It's the American, and it's the Australian version, and it's series 2 effectively, because there's a series came out more recently. But the thing is, it says that Daryl Summers was the host. I can't remember that. I didn't think it was. But I was there at the point at which something changed over. That's why I got involved.
Australian Family Feud host.
I've looked and looked. But maybe it was. Maybe I didn't know him at the time, so therefore I didn't take any notice. But the thing is, they stripped out the studio and they put in new equipment.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
And so they stopped the filming. It was still running on television. They had a batch in the can, but they had contracted somebody to build some equipment, and so all the displays with the lights came back. All had integrated circuits this time, and there was an Apple IIe that controlled it and sent all the messages, the answers to the questions.
Here's an Apple IIe, in case you want one Apple II. Oh, that's an Apple II. Sorry, I didn't find an E.
Okay, well, basically this is the era of the personal computer coming in. Yeah. So it sent serial signals to this thing. And my job, to help the guy install it. And I think I mentioned in my notes to you that, there you are. Yes, I can see it on the feed. He'd made a mistake with the choice of integrated circuits. And it was intermittent. Things sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. So my contribution to that basically was to suggest using linear ICs, not Schmidt trigger ICs, which are two different forms of triggering. Anyway, long story short, we got it working. We installed it just in time, and I realized why everybody was coming in and asking every day, is it going to be working? Is it going to be working? And I go, what are they worried about for? And it turned out that if they'd have missed one show, they would have the show would have stopped. So if they'd have run out of tapes to play, the whole show would have rated 0 and wouldn't be continued.
Yeah.
Even though they had all their gear there. So they were all afraid for their jobs, and I didn't realize that. Anyway, after it had all been installed and we started filming again, I used to work every Sunday. They'd shoot eight episodes in the studio, and I had to be there to fix any problems with the displays that they had.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So I have a picture of the 2018 Family Feud, which looks very different, the set at least, from the 82 version. And I have a picture of Tony's badge, or staff pass, when he was at Channel 9, Australia, Melbourne.
And I was only there for a short time again. I don't hang around.
Our friend Mike Flavin says in the comments, my dad has an Apple IIc that still works.
Great. Yeah, that'll be worth a bit before long. There we are. I look like that Greek criminal, don't I?
You don't. Yeah, I think there's only been one photo that I've seen where you've been smiling. All the rest, you look very kind of
It's
bothered
the
and annoyed.
and that's what does it. It looks like I got the same wig that Mockbell escaped.
Oh,
That was found in Italy, in Greece with. Yeah, Mockbell. That's it. Anyway, and so I what did I do then? Can you tell me what I did then? 'Cause
well,
I've
I
forgotten.
actually had a question for you for those video heads who are interested in broadcast technology and changing or evolving. And for the longest of time, PAL and NTSC were of the utmost importance, depending on which regions you lived in and all that kind of stuff. But now that we have digital TV and HD TV, how do you feel that's affecting people? Is there any need to be concerned about PAL and NTSC still?
No, that's all really gone because it's all different. It doesn't require the same sort of scanning technology that it did then. So no, half the problem that we had with video in those days was that all the cameras had to be synchronized. And so we had gen locking and all sorts of things. It was always a big problem. And if they weren't, then you'd get a tearing as you switched between them. Well, nowadays, look at us. I can switch between my camera and the other camera, and you wouldn't notice. So things have improved hugely in that respect to make programs easier. But there is one thing about Family Feud that I did learn very early on was that they were doing an edit on the fly.
Oh.
They were using edit tape machines.
Yeah.
To do, I forget what the editing is called now, but it's where you stop the tape and then you do a 10-second pre-roll, and as it runs forward, it picks up the sync pulses from the camera and goes back into record.
Wow.
It's a butt edit or whatever.
Okay.
It's
I can't
when
remember
you
the term either.
yeah basically it's an edit on the fly. So if there was always a guy who did the voiceover and he always swore and things like that by mistake, and then they'd say, oh, he said it again, so they'd rewind and cue the action, and they would go straight on into the next camera shot.
Nice.
Which to me that was brilliant. No editing. The editing was done as it went along, and so that sort of got me to work in a different way ever since then.
Yeah. Well, the next sub segment of this chapter is U.LaTrobe. And you have a story to tell us about U.LaTrobe.
I have. Yes, I did. I wanted to work in the music department all the time since that's right. It's coming back to me. I'd already known that U.LaTrobe University Music Department had a festival, and while I was still waiting to emigrate. So when I got here, I'd been talking to people by my mail about possibly working there and so on. And one of the letters has got to Jim Sosnin, and he rang me at home and got my daughter, who was at that time 12. And she talked to him for a bit, and he said, no, I'm afraid we haven't got any jobs here. So she told me that, and that's fine. And then I wanted to work at U.LaTrobe. It sounded good, and I actually got a job next door to the music department in the media centre. And that's where I learnt most of what I know about video now.
Oh,
it's a
so
school of
media
education.
center first. Okay.
Yes, and a long time, maybe even quite a few years. I worked there, and I made friends with the music department people, including Jim and others, and the students, and I belonged sort of to the student group. They had concerts, they had drinks, they had barbecues. I was always there. I enjoyed their company, and I enjoyed the stuff they were doing. So years later, when a vacancy became available, Jeff Pressing and Jim decided to take me on as the replacement. So my dream became reality.
So I've got some photos from the La Trobe stash. Of course, the first one is your staff card or your staff pass, but with the education department, I see.
Yes, that was the media center.
Oh, all right. Okay,
We
got it.
taught teachers how to teach video,
You taught teachers
and
how
how
to
to
teach
use
video.
Yeah,
Oh,
we would teachers courses.
so how does this photo fit of you? It says Arnhem Land Prep.
When I got to Latrobe Media Center, very shortly afterwards, the person who was in charge of that area got a contract to go to Arnhem Land and make a video about Aboriginal art.
Oh, which is this one then?
Yes, I was testing the camera in the studios prior to going at that point.
Okay.
And I was the technical person on that setup. And so we had to take everything by plane, light aircraft, into Arnhem Land and stay at Maningrida and go out in trucks to the artists in the outstations and film them. And we made a video for them as a public relations thing for their art organization. There's me hanging around with other people between takes in the middle of a swamp, a dry swamp at the time, summer. That's all underwater in the winter. We were seeing them catch fish using fish traps in the creeks that were left as the water receded. Amazing. And I'd seen more of that area of Australia than most other people had. That was maybe a year or two after I'd arrived in Australia.
And what happened from here to the music department then? That was your next stop, wasn't it?
Well, that was me doing the job there. And I also went to an island in Bass Strait and stayed for 2 weeks to make a documentary about the previous occupants of that place, which was 10,000 years ago.
Wow.
And that was another, as well as doing all the student activities that we did, teaching, making programs for students, that sort of thing. Anyway, when I did do the transfer, I went across to music and worked there, really enjoyed it. Jeff Pressing at the time was getting money for installing a MIDI studio, or a couple of them, and employed Chris Lai, who became a colleague of mine in the process. And so we both worked in the music department and supporting the students and the staff.
So I have a vague picture of a part of some of the older buildings of Latrobe. I found pictures of the current Latrobe that don't look at all like the Latrobe I remember. But so this is one with the creek or whatever it's called.
Yeah, look, it's been a huge development out there, that's for sure. And obviously, since the changes, there'll be more changes. But at the time, there was a studio that Jim was very closely involved in.
I can't remember what
recording studio.
What the names of the studios were. Jim, if you're still listening, could you remind us? There was Studio EA or something. I don't remember the names of the studios. The MIDI studio, the recording studio, the computer lab.
We had the improv lab as well. Where people would record things to tape.
Oh yeah.
And we actually, in education, we used some of the students' music in our videos that they'd create, improvisations, and all sorts of things. Anyway, when I was in music, I also introduced a course called, what's it called? TV for Musicians, where some people on the course would go over to the other area and edit movies. And then add soundtracks and sound effects and stuff like that. So they knew how video worked if they ever combined the two in the future.
Got it.
And that was good fun.
So I've got a quick little flyer thingy that I've highlighted segments about the history specific to the music department at that time, of how it came about. And of course, do we see everyone's names? No, just the important people. But then I have a picture of the music department staff where you see some of the names we've just mentioned. Jim Sosnan, who I hope is still on the chat. He's kneeling in the like a light green shirt.
Yeah,
Tony.
we had a sports day.
Oh.
Volleyball.
And I see Chris, Cindy, and David Hurst, and
yes, yes. I work with David Hurst a lot. In synchronization seems to come to mind. You know, MIDI sync.
Oh yeah.
So we combined the recording studio, the analog recording studio, with synchronizing MIDI stuff as well. So yeah, I mean, we had a great time. It was the that's a great picture. Yeah, so we had a volleyball match that day. That's me with the duck.
Yeah, the music department then was a pretty formidable force for sure, but it didn't get to survive very long, did it?
No. There was a point at which we were all told to amalgamate. So I actually ended up back in the music, the music department joined up with the media department, plus English and something else, cinema studies. Oh. And so, as it was, I ended up as the manager of the technical services of the whole area, which became less pleasant as it went on. I wasn't made for that.
So did you leave again?
Yeah, eventually, yes. Just prior to the music department actually being, shut down and shafted by all the other departments, really. I mean, they just decided to one department out of the group would go, rather than somebody from each. Anyway, I'd already gone by then. I was charmed into going to another job with Optus. And that was to set up a studio for the community so that they could make TV shows that would be shown as on one channel of the Optus local vision cable channel.
So before you carry on, any U.LaTrobe former staff or students, it's been difficult finding photographs, pictures of the music department or anything that happened there online. So if you have photos or such to share, please let us know. Thank you. Carry on.
It was tricky. I went to the local vision with the administrator, one of the people who administered loans and things from U.LaTrobe, and also a lecturer. He was the instigator of it all. He'd been lecturing at U.LaTrobe as a casual. Oh, anyway, complexes. I can't remember quite. Anyway, that was why we all ended up there. And I did. It was great. 18 months working there. We taught about 1,000 people a year how to make a TV show. 18
months, did you say?
Yes.
So I've got pictures here, of course. Hold on a second.
It's a brochure.
I have your pass. Again, this is the smiling face, I remember.
They took it with a video camera this time, so they chose the one where you're actually smiling rather than scowling.
Okay, that's good. And here's,
it says... Really. It stops you living with a past that shows you're a miserable old sod.
Oh, here's the group, the local vision team, with you at the back.
Yeah, this is the first time I ever worked in any corporate role. I quite liked it a bit. I helped spend $1 million on equipment, and prior to the studio being set up, I was working in their headquarters, and open plan offices, quiet, free tea and coffee, the whole corporate thing. And I thought this is all right, but probably not forever. Anyway, yes, there they all are, and some of them are casuals and things like that. Yeah. So, yeah, it was kind of good. We set something up from the ground up.
So I have a response from Jim Sosnan. He says the studio names changed a bit over the years. This is in reference to the music department during that time, late 80s, early 90s of LaTrobe University. The studio names changed a bit over the years. Some of the ones I remember are Sound Lab C. So I guess there was an A and B too. And the improv lab and the recording studio. It's too long ago! Exclamation mark. I know, my memory is bad, so I don't recall anything.
Yes, now I'm starting to get lost again because I know that I went there and then I went back to LaTrobe. I quit that. I quit that after 18 months because I didn't like the way it was going. And it turned out that Local Vision shut down shortly afterwards because they were doing this as a public relations exercise with the cables in the streets that they were installing and trying to say that they were doing a community benefit, you see. So anyway, luckily my partner, Michelle, she supported me in going self-employed.
Okay.
And I thought, what can I do? What can I do now? And I thought, well, what I really do know about is Apple Macintosh and, certainly the music side of things as well from a hobby. And so I thought I'll become an Apple Macintosh freelance support person. And I advertised in the Green Guide, which was a supplement for the newspaper in Melbourne. And I started actually quite a thing because other people started putting ads in there as well for support for computers. And I just earned a living going from place to place, fixing up their problems with Apple. Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. So I've got at least a couple of pictures of news class. I'm assuming they are students. They were not your students though, because one's in 2004. So you can see we still have our old CRT monitors.
This is where I'm getting to because what I did is I went back to LaTrobe as a part-time person. And I because they closed, I might not be 100% accurate here, but because they closed the music department down, there were 3 years of people potentially going through. That had to be taught out, and quite a lot of the staff left. So they said to me, somebody said to me, Tony, can you set up some of these courses with the people? Can you teach them? And so I ended up doing some of the music technology courses for third year and second year people. David Hurst, Jim Sosnan was still there, and they were a great help in this. And they were doing the same thing, teaching people out because it had closed effectively, So I learned a lot about how to do that. And I didn't have many course notes from previous years, so I looked in the course outline manual that, the course brochure that the students had got and saw what I had to sort of offer. And I had to kind of rewrite lots of it.
Wow.
But, we got through that.
So
and
was this a class that you taught from that curriculum that you mentioned?
Yeah, I do remember. I've still got some of the work that they did. Multimedia for musicians was one. So it was not a music as such. So I'm not very good at the actual technical stuff of music itself. It's the technical stuff I was talking to them about. PA work, all sorts of things. We covered a lot of areas in music.
So in this picture we see CRT monitors, and in the next picture I have, we are now computer based. 2020 is the date, the year of this picture.
Well, for the following 16 years, I worked 10 weeks a year for 3 days a week with 5 groups of people for 2 hours at a time. And I, in conjunction with a lot of other people, I was the tutor for that. And I would, that studio made programs every year. The idea was that there were journalism students and they were required to learn how to make a TV program in 8 weeks 2 hours a week contact time with me. I would tell them how to do it. And by the end of the 8 weeks, they would come in at a certain time of day, have an hour to set the studio up, and have to go to air on the dot after the hour. And it was fabulous. That was my best fun, was having all these students making a program. They'd filmed all the inserts prior.
Yeah.
And the technicians were just fantastic in media and music. Mm. They know who they are.
I'm
Ian,
sure
Margaret,
they do.
Yeah, you know, and I think they're still doing it. At least, you know, because it became popular, and we understand that lots of other universities and colleges copied this sort of course. Mm. We had overseas students we had people from China who said that when they go back, they're going to be starting up the course themselves. They were lecturers. Mm. And so they were here to see how the course ran.
I understand.
And it was incredibly successful. I don't think anyone said they didn't enjoy it, you know. Mm. But I got a CD's worth of their work, you know, the work. Mm. We had 5 groups in that week doing it, and each and then on the last week they were shown on a big screen in a lecture theatre to all the participants, and you all the warts and all were presented on the screen.
So you're telling me that your love for radio came from your dad?
Yeah.
So when you went full circle back to radio, was this upon retirement, or you just got tired and wanted to do something else? This will be the chapter 4.
I was always doing radio in the background. I always talked to people overseas. I always had somewhere set up in my house or in my car. When I came to Australia, I went and did the Murray Marathon radio support. All the canoes went up the river, and I joined a local radio club providing communications for them. So yes, this is all bubbling away in the background. But when I actually did retire, effectively, although I hadn't done a full day's work since 20 years ago, because it was all part-time, and I was building a house with my partner, and we moved up to Castlemaine, and we were doing all those sort of things, moving to the country. But radio was still bubbling away. And so when I actually officially retired in 2013, I got right back into it. You know, I relapsed basically into amateur radio, and that's what one of my biggest interests is now, or maybe half and half with music.
I have a picture of you from the Bendigo Advertiser 3 years ago, Radio Far From Over for Scouts in Digital Age.
Yes, we've been doing a lot of public relations, my Bendigo club, and we're all very good at self-promotion now, and why not? We've managed to encourage above average number of younger people into the hobby. There's me teaching a load of scouts how to do it, and a couple of them and their leaders, 4 in all, passed their exam and are now active amateurs, or maybe inactive, depending on how their interest has been kept up. But that's just one thing. The ABC has done a lot of stuff with us. Online, I had a story about this very thing. We've branched out into teaching primary kids how to solder at the local school here. Parents approached me after they'd done one of our
I think it was this picture.
Holiday. Yeah, they'd done a holiday course.
This one.
Run by Ross and others.
For American viewers, solder is solder.
Oh,
just in
I know.
case.
I can never get used to that, tell you the truth.
I'll be your translator.
Yeah, thanks very much. Look, let's credit where credit's due. Make magazine in America. That's my granddaughter there. She's helping out. She learnt how to do all these things, and she helped for 3 terms at the school, assisting a parent, teacher, and ourselves. So that's taken off really big, and in fact so big that we've helped a local organisation apply for a major grant to start up a STEM centre in their building. They're called the Castlemaine Community House, and they do lots of courses that are relevant to teenagers, and so we're hoping that will come through. But if it doesn't, we've got plenty of other avenues for grants and
so
things
I have
like that.
a comment from Mike Flavin in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I'll let you answer this one, of course. Is this what we used to call ham radio in the States?
It is. We call it ham radio here as well, although we tend to, I don't know, we're not as keen to use the term because we're trying to create a more professional approach to it, in that it's a serious hobby. We're growing into electronics areas, so, IT. We're attracting a lot of younger people into the thing, IT experts who love the computer aspects of it as well. So, we're learning to attract the attention of people who are interested as part of our mission, if you like, to encourage the continuation of it.
I got it, because you don't want to ham it up.
Boom, boom.
So I have a question. What position does amateur radio occupy with, cell phones and radio devices taking up more of the frequency bands? Do you think there'll always be a space in the large pie for everyone, or will someone eventually get kicked off of this pie?
Look, I think governments know how important it is to have a pool of experts, self-trained. It doesn't cost a lot of money because people are just doing it for themselves. So, that's one thing. We haven't been unfortunate enough to lose spectrum to these other things. But your point is very good. This is one that we're banging on about all the time, is that when things go wrong, that's when amateur radio comes into its own. We can't, you can talk overseas, no trouble at all now. You can do all these things with what we're doing right now. We couldn't do this with amateur radio. But if we were in a situation where all this disappeared, I could go over there to my radio and it's got a battery attached to it and I could talk around the world. And that's what we propose. When the fires happened here in late last year, early this year, Malakuta, which is a coastal town, got cut off by fires, and the people had to be evacuated by ship. Wow. And they had no idea what was happening. They were just struggling to survive on the beach. Now, radio does play a part in those situations, and we're not kidding ourselves that it'll replace any of the internet stuff, but we know that where the media of last resort, and we're setting ourselves up so that communities can have their own radios, be trained to use them and to call for help. Because the main problem is that without telephone connections, people stuck in forests and in other isolated areas have no idea which way to turn. And that's where we try and provide a service between them and the 000, which is the American 991. And we're concentrating on that. And people have understood what we're talking about, and are taking it up in ever-increasing numbers.
So do you think we won't need to fear that one day in the near future, frequency or slice of that frequency spectrum dedicated to amateur radio will be wrenched from our hands because the commercial world needs it more than we do?
Well, they try. But the thing is, the short-wave broadcasts are not very valuable to the phones and the other networks. They're using 5G, which is extremely high frequencies, next. And so, no, there's pressure on other people, but there's certainly is pressure on amateur radio for some things, but we've got some good organizations around the world. You've got, or the Americans have got the ARRL, Amateur Radio, Radio Relay League, Radio Society of Great Britain. We've got the WIA, Wireless Institute of Australia. And so, it's good that we belong to these organizations. They fight internationally on our behalf.
Thank you. There is a news article here I'd like to display. Oops. Make sure I click the right one. Youth take up amateur radio from inside Central Victorian bus in the bush.
Yes. They understood the fragility of the networks, because as soon as you get power supply cuts, the internet goes. There may be a battery backup in the street. The mobile network, that's the ABC story that appeared on their website. Mm-hmm. Same bus, different story. Mm. And yes, that they realise that it's important. I've got a community of friends in the community near here, about 10 kilometres away, mm-hmm. In a place called Friars Forest. There's one road in, and that's it. Friars Town is the nearest little village, which has got a fire station, but nothing else. That's about 3k away. Well, these people use CB to talk to each other, but nobody outside that area can hear them. So they've realized that what they want to do is actually learn to use shortwave and to use other technologies, such as repeaters and things, to help themselves. And the other night I heard a lecture on our club Zoom chat from people far and wide who form emergency networks. And one of them talked about community fragility. Mm-hmm. And that's the angle we're taking. And so this bus was just used because the scout leaders has got some. He used to work for bus lines and parked old buses near it. But we could operate that bus with solar power, batteries, and completely isolated from his home supply.
So our friend Mike Flavin, again from Pennsylvania, he says people underestimate how valuable amateur radio can be in times of national emergencies. Radio waves are impervious to internet outages, and there's a lot of power outages in the U.S. and around the world, I guess, where you have natural disasters and things like that, especially. Yes,
that's where we get all our knowledge from. Hearing what they're doing. I read regularly the bulletins, the ARES, ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Service over there. I read them and I repost them on Facebook for our group to look at. But yeah, I mean, America's got quite a lot of people living in remote areas, and they need to look after themselves, and they've developed quite a lot of resilience. They've signed a memorandum of understanding with the Red Cross to provide them with services of communication, all that sort of stuff. So I'm basically using the US model to try and argue with people here to do the same thing.
I have one last little clip I want to show, and it's this one, which I think is wonderful. It's from the newspaper, the Sunday Age. Tony Falla's place is a boundless land of call signs and crackling camaraderie. And it's a good read. Viewers, if you want to read it for yourself, but I think it's great. And I like how you kind of juxtapose the digital virtual world with the playground in your mind kind of thing as I was reading it, And I do have a couple of things I want to say after this. But Tony, did you want to make any comments about this article?
Oh, you just hit the nail on the head. You have, and that's what I was trying to get across, was that we had a virtual world before the internet came along. We people who were interested in this lived in this world, and it wasn't a surprise when the internet came along. We were familiar with it. So yes, I did want to create that impression with that story.
So I have a couple of questions, and one is a particularly a sensitive one, because I'm of the notion, much like you are, that and the quote I mentioned earlier on from what's his name? One second. Connor Fred Cochran, who's an author of the Creative Options Corner and the former Keyboard magazine. He said, to do something, you have to actually do it. So I'm like you in that if something intrigues me, I don't sit around and wait. I just go do it. But a lot of people are thinking there is an age limit to this kind of behavior, and I don't believe so. What would you say to people who feel that as one gets older, one gets slower in the mind, and things like new technology shouldn't have to bother them? You know, I am too old for this. This is your generation stuff.
Well, there's 2 points there. One is that that the quote where you say to do something, you have to do it, and that's what I tell the younger people who come into this hobby. They get told, by people who've done it for years, oh, you can't, that aerial won't work. You need to have this. You need to have a tower. I say to them, put up a wire, see if you can get anywhere. If you can't, put up a bigger wire. But, you just don't wait till everything's right. I've never done that. And so some people have criticized me for saying I'm prepared to do things a slack way. But I'm prepared to do things, that's you only have to be slack and not worry about it. If it works, then you've done something. You don't have to go full bore at it. It works. If it doesn't work, you improve it. So I think my feeling is that I've never been busier. If I was as busy now at work, I would have progressed a lot further, I'm sure, because now I'm writing to royal commissions. I'm, getting involved with the ABC. I mean, those stories were me writing to them in the first place. They didn't just hear about me. Yeah. I've been hassling them, and then they bring up and they say, "What's this you're talking about?" So, I've got busier and busier. And I've been so interested in all the technology. But like my friend in Adelaide, who joins us on Zooming stuff, he's lectured students in electronics. And, we've just kept busy with it, learning to teach. We want to teach, so we need to learn. Yeah. And that's what's kept me busy.
So I guess the answer is there is no age limit to learning new technology, whatever that technology is.
No, and I'll tell you the most when iPads came out, I had a course here when I was doing the Apple Macintosh support. Mm-hmm. My biggest number of clients for the iPad courses were ladies over 60. Wow! Now they
must like your company.
Well, but the thing is that they had maybe played with computers all their lives, but that was at work, and at home they didn't. But now the iPad had come out, they wanted to talk to their grandchildren, they wanted to Skype, they wanted to do this, and they needed to know. And so they were really getting very keen to learn, and they were the best of my subjects, my students. And I realized then that they did want to learn, and 60 plus. Yeah. But if you need to know it, you do learn it. It's when you don't need to that you don't bother.
Wow, that is heavy duty. Yeah, I agree. Don't get lazy anymore, everybody. Continue to learn. Don't rely on someone else to tell you what to do if you can.
And it helps take your mind off the current world situation as well, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. So we're coming to the end. If you have questions, please put it in the comments because we have a lag of about a minute. So I don't want you to miss Tony and Tony miss your questions, because, this is the time to ask them. So think about it, put it in while I ask him my last question. My last question is, of all your adventures / chapters, which has been the most rewarding? Or at least maybe sometimes you think fondly of, when someone says to you, what has been what's the most treasured memory, you immediately reach for that one for some reason or other, whether it's rewarding or whatever.
Yeah. I can tell you, it's having a child. Even though it's a bit inconvenient in the middle of university days, having, and more recently, having some more children effectively by having a larger step family.
Yeah.
And, and step grandchildren. I mean, these kids just a wonderful company. So, you don't need much more than family, do you?
Sigh. Don't make me cry again. Anyone else with questions then?
Well, while you're waiting for the questions, I'd just like to thank everybody, especially you, for giving me the chance to do this. And I hope you weren't too, bored, your customers.
No. I've been having dreams about your life chapters. As I've been working through them, I'd be dreaming about them.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah, well, I have too, so we've been there together. But I'm relieved it's over, but I'm delighted that it happened.
Tony, you've been an awesome guest, as they would say in America. And our friend Mike Flavin's already thanking you. Thank you, Tony, for sharing all those stories. And I'm sure there are other things coming in. I don't worry if you wanted to get a copy of the live stream. I will send you a copy. Probably zip it first, because I've recorded it. I remember you saying that you wanted to have a copy, so I will get that to you.
Thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was so great to spend all this time with you after so many years.
Let's not leave it 27 years again before we chat. I follow you on Facebook, so I kind of know
what I'm up to.
Know you.
Likewise. Yeah, I will. I did say I'll try and visit you soon, so I'm going to try and visit you soon.
Great.
Oh, Mike Flavin says, again, I'm glad someone is keeping amateur radio going. It's something I was interested in back in the day. That's good.
Take it up again, mate. Take it up again. Your license is still valid.
Okay, I don't think there are any more questions, so I'm gonna bid Tony adieu. A little sad to bid him adieu, because Tony is a very good friend. When I was at U.LaTrobe, thanks to Tony, I moved forward 2 more feet instead of backward with 1 foot kind of thing. So he's been a great source of information and great support. So thanks, Tony.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Okay, everyone, say bye to Tony. Tony, you have your awesome animated GIF right next to your name. You're awesome. And I do have a little, applaud. Oh, and Jim Sosnan, he came up with, Tony, I've known you for many years, but I had no idea about the extent of your life's adventures. Thanks for doing this. And, thanks, Jim. Jim thanked me too. Thanks, Jim. Yeah. Glad to see you. I need to visit you too sometime.
Catch you soon.
Okay. Take care. Take care, Tony.
Yep.
And I'll catch you soon. I'll stay in touch and let you know if I can, when I visit.
Lovely.
Okay, say hi to and bye to Michelle. Thanks, Tony.
Will do.
Bye. Bye. So, yes, memories are one of those things, isn't it? kind of puts you in a different frame of mind, a different emotional status. So for those of you who came a little late, I'm looking for some quotes for my live stream. Unfortunately, in this day and age, you have to do a lot of marketing and sales yourself, as Tony had to at EMS. He got converted from an electronics technician to a salesman. And so any kind words I can use to promote my live stream would be most grateful. If you want to put it in the live chat, I would appreciate that. Or if you want to put it in a comment post live stream, I would appreciate that too. Oh, thanks, Mike Flavin. Mike says you have the coolest friends. Yeah, I like to think I do. You including. So, yeah, that was, wow, 2.5 hours with Tony going through. I managed to squeeze his life into 4 chapters, but, you know, there was so much more material, and there's so much material I couldn't find online either, and I had to also pay heed to YouTube's copyright and licensing rules and regulations, so there are things I couldn't show or play for you, but you can find it yourself online. So our guest next week is another person who works in broadcast, and that's Philip Nelson. He's former VP of Strategic Development with NewTek. NewTek took advantage of the Commodore Amiga in the 80s to build a video broadcasting platform that was ahead of its time. So former Amiga users, or if you are curious as to the power of the Amiga and how video broadcasting was like with Amiga as a competitor in the 80s, please tune in. Again, pass this channel along and invite more people to next week's party. All right then, everybody. Thank you again. You guys have been great. You guys have been awesome as well. So here's your awesome badge. Okay, I shall see you all then next week. Please come to help me bid Philip Nelson a warm welcome. Take care and stay safe in the meantime. And I shall see you same time, same place next week. Bye, everybody.